people are right-handed, so the steerboards on these large trade vessels would be attached to the right-hand side. And to avoid these boards clashing with each other, as vessels passed one another on narrow stretches of water, they'd keep over to the right. The word steerboard has then simply evolved over the years into the word starboard, meaning right-hand side. So it may now make sense that as these vessels come into moor up, because they had large steerboards attached to the right-hand side, they'd have to moor on their left. But more importantly, because they were trade vessels, they'd be coming into port on their left. Another family unit of swans just in front of us. The cygnets here are a little over 2 months old at the moment.
2 months old.
2 months old, eh?
Look at that. So fluffy.
Just ahead of us, to the right-hand side, there's another speed limit sign. However, underneath this speed limit sign, it will say "Accept authorised vessels at certain times." Earlier on, we passed the ferry marina, and I told you the average cost of a vessel within that marina. But there's also a brokerage there. So you can't tell me you're going to go and spend potentially an awful lot of money on a vessel without ensuring those engines can perform as they should do. So very shortly we'll be entering a 1/4 mile stretch where at certain times of the day, with the correct permissions in place and the correct trade plates in place, you're allowed to come along, open up those engines and test the performance of a boat. Now of course you could go out and do sea trials. However, obeying the speed limits from Horning would take several hours to get out to sea, let alone your sea trials and then several hours back. I'm pretty sure if buying a second-hand vessel, the previous owners are not going to approve of you putting so many hours on their craft or indeed taking it out to sea before actually making a purchase. For the more observant of you, you may have noticed since leaving the main village behind, there is actually a distinct lack of smaller wildlife using the riverways here. In part, this is down to the otter. The otter, almost wiped out in the Norfolk Broads, hunted for its fur much like mink. Repopulated by Defra during the 1970s, had a population boom in the 80s and is currently flourishing. Unfortunately though, the otter doesn't just hunt for food, it hunts for fun. So it has had a rather detrimental effect on a smaller wildlife, such as moorhens and coots that use the reeds for nesting. Fortunately, we still see plenty of this smaller wildlife on many of the smaller broads. The otters very rarely venture onto any of the smaller broads. They don't appear to like the entrapment, much preferring to keep to the main riverways. As lovely as the otter is to see, and we do regularly see them up and down this stretch now, because of that sheer detrimental effect it's having upon the smaller wildlife, it wouldn't surprise me if in too much longer we need to start culling them.